We're still waiting for one more.
Never late.
No, I was here, but not
Waiting
here.
for Andrew, he's coming back. And one more.
Quorum.
Hey Andrew, how are you?
Otherwise known as Andrew.
And this is just implementation. This one, okay. As compared to this one. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the November 21st Santa Clara Valley Habitat Agency Regular Implementation Board meeting. Why don't we just start off with, we'll just start from one end to the other with introductions.
Thank
Please.
you. Laurel Pervetti, City of San Jose Implementation Board.
Andrew Crabtree, City of Morgan Hill.
Pat Tucker, City of Gilroy, City Council.
Mike Wasserman, County Board of Supervisors.
Dennis Kennedy, Santa Clara Valley Water District, alternate for Brian Schmidt.
Linda Lazat, Santa Clara Valley Water District. For myself.
Hello.
Gordon Siebert, Morgan Hill City Council, and alternates.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you very much. And this is a public meeting. If there's anyone wishing to speak about any item not on the agenda, you can submit a card, or you can raise your hand or something. I don't know if we have any cards here or not, but I don't believe we have any at this time. So we will move on to item number 1, which is approval of the minutes from our October 17th meeting. Motion, discussion?
Second.
Got an approval, motion made and second. Any discussion regarding item number 1? Seeing none, we have no cards. That, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. Vera, do you have a point? Yes.
Only one point. This will also be back on in January for government board approval, so you won't see this again, but the governing board will.
Right, thank you. Implementation board takes care of it, and it doesn't come back. I like that. All right. Item number 2 is employment options for the executive officer position. The recommended action is directing the implementation board recruitment subcommittee and interim executive officer to proceed with the hiring process for an executive officer as an in-house agency employee. And Ken, are you going to make? Vera's going to make a presentation, please.
Just very, very briefly, I think that the report says pretty much everything, but there were 3 options that we explored. They're really the only 3 options where we could hire someone for the executive officer position. The first is to hire as an independent contractor. The second would be to contract with a member agency for those services. And the third would be to establish an in-house employment position. As mentioned in the memo, the independent contractor position we don't believe is available because there are legal tests for how much liability and how much, related to how much control of that position the agency has. And we don't believe that this meets the tests for an independent contractor, so that option is not available to us. The second is to contract with a member agency for services of an executive officer. And we have no one who has expressed any interest. I know Ken, the interim executive officer, went to some of the agencies earlier on in this process and asked about interest and has been along the way, and no one has expressed any interest in doing that. So it's not viable. Additionally, there are some other reasons expressed in the memo why that's an undesirable method. And with regard to the last option, which is an in-house employment position, that's really the only option that you have. And it means that the person is fully accountable to this board and will be working full-time for the agency, doing the work that you direct and the work that they're required to do by the formation documents to move the agency along. So that is the recommended option. I had a few recommendations that were a little bit more expansive, but just so that you know. The first was that to direct the subcommittee, for this board to direct the subcommittee and the interim executive officer to proceed with the recruitment as an in-house employment position with the agency. The second one was that the subcommittee and executive officer continue to utilize legal and other professional resources because we're a new agency and we need to comply with laws governing this employment and how we hire and how we conduct the recruitment and the questions that we ask and that kind of thing. And so to seek advice where necessary. The last one is also that the agency have a contractual arrangement with whoever they decide is the successful candidate, and that all of the terms of employment be expressed in that agreement. That's along the way, but that's sort of a path to take toward employing this person. Thank you very much. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Vera, I appreciate that. Again, we're on item number 2. If anyone in the public wishes to speak to this item, please just raise your hand or cough or something, and we'll recognize you. Committee members, yes?
I'm just wondering why there wasn't consideration of hiring a firm that would provide one or more qualified individuals to serve in this function.
That ends up being the same independent contractor issue that we have with a firm as we do with an individual contractor. Again, you're providing certain services. This board actually directs that officer or that person. So it wouldn't be multiple persons. You need one person at the head of the organization. And there really are the same independent contractor considerations. Just because it's an arm length doesn't mean that you would be directing them any less.
Thank you.
I might
Interesting.
yes, add
Ken?
to that technically right now, you have hired my firm, and my firm has hired me. Now, I'm the only employee, so it's easy to have staff meetings. But the point is, you've hired my firm. But if you go to a larger consulting organization, and we look at the hourly rates and then the overhead costs, even if you try to negotiate it down, you end up with some rather much larger numbers in terms of cost. And I think you wouldn't be, I don't think you could find an economically livable solution in the consultant world, unless it was really sort of oddball, like a retired public employee sets his own firm up. And there aren't a whole lot of us around.
Thank you for that. I would imagine, yes, Gordon.
Not to be argumentative, but I happen to work for such a firm. I'm not interested in it. I don't think my firm is interested. Our billing rate's $125 an hour for registered professional engineers. I wonder what your billing rate is.
My billing rate is notably less than that, because it's a flat fee for a year and it comes out to about $85 an hour. Comparable consultants are probably twice my hourly rate plus overhead. So if we're dealing with far more than 125 an hour if we're out in the consulting world in terms of conservation biologists and people in that realm.
And those are the practical considerations, but in terms of the legal considerations, we think that there are significant legal issues regarding considering anybody an independent contractor. They're going to be sitting in agency offices. They need to be available to the public. They'll be here at least 40 hours a week. You are going to direct their actions. Everything that they prepare just about is to go to you or the governing board for approval. They are going to be working very independently in order to do that, but they are still going to be the face of the agency. It's not a contractor who is selected to do a piece of the work. And one of the reasons why, Ken is appropriately an independent contractor, he has been working on the HCP for a number of years. It was a rollover into this function. It makes a lot of sense to do that. We felt our way around before the agency was formed on May 26th. A lot of us started volunteering services to the agency just to get that first meeting going, get the second meeting going. And that was more independent. You were not here directing us yet. And so that startup is more appropriately that way. But as you become a permanent agency with regular functions, and it's less so, much less so.
Thank you for the legal explanation. Thank you, Ken. And Committee Member Schmidt, I certainly understand, Gordon, the cost is something that we want to keep an eye on, because some of those numbers just seem staggering. And when I see engineers and doctors thinking about switching jobs, then I know we need to keep an eye on that, absolutely. Committee members, more discussion here on the three options before this. Our council has suggested number 3 is really the viable way to go, but we need to have discussion and ultimately a motion.
Motion to approve item number 3, selection number 3.
Second.
Any further discussion? Yes, Commissioner Lazat.
Yeah, item number 3.
It's item number 2 is choice number 3.
Action number 3.
Establish an in-house employment position with the Habitat Agency as our council has recommended.
Right, and does it include the additional recommendations on the next page, 1, 2, and 3?
Good point.
Well, we've already done number 1. Well, have we?
Yeah,
Maybe, may I?
Vera, do we
If
need
you
all
desire,
three?
you really just, you can direct how we're going to advertise this position, how we're going to do it, and we will just do number 2 and 3. You know, we assume that that's the direction of the
Okay.
board, if you tell us that that's what you desire.
Okay. Thank you. So motion maker and seconder agree with that?
Yes.
Yep. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. We now go on to agenda item number 3, and first of all, I'd like to thank, we had Brian Schmidt, is he gone?
No, he's not.
Brian Schmidt from the Water District, and Councilmember Rose Herrera and myself for the last hour and a half. We're in that little room back there. We met first with Ken and discussed the whole recruiting process, and then we did an interview with CPS HR Consulting Company that was, I believe, the only one actually, Ken, that ended up answering the RFP.
That is correct.
If that's correct, and the information that Ken gave us about this company was very favorable, well-known in his experience, and after that, we sat down for about 45 minutes, cross-examining, if you will. CPS HR Consulting, the principal that was there was a lady named Pamela. I don't have her first name in front of me, last name in front of me, but also was Ed Tweez, the former city manager. Ed, right back there. Pamela, there you go. Ed Tweez, the former city manager of Morgan Hill, is now at that consulting firm. And just for full disclosure, Ed joined with the firm far before our RFP went out. There's no conflict or apparent inappropriateness of any type there. After meeting with them, we then asked them to leave the room, and the subcommittee, which this committee and the governing committee had appointed, again, myself, committee members Herrera and Schmidt, we agreed unanimously to make a recommendation to this implementation board that we contract with CPS HR Consulting for $24,000, their fee as is itemized in the report, and plus a $5,000 contingency fee, giving Ken that authority if need be for anything else. There's nothing foreseen, but it may come up. We didn't want that to hold up the process over the next couple of months. Ideally, what the plan is, if this board here by a majority vote agrees with that, that'll be going forward. The CPS HR Consulting will then work with Ken to more further define the job, the description of the exec that we're looking for to replace Ken. It was very detailed in the RFP that went out. This is what we were looking for. And in addition, the firm will be calling members of the subcommittee, the 3 of us that I mentioned. And if anybody else wishes to be called too, they'll be happy to call and interview you to ask, what do you feel the new executive director, what skills, background that new executive director should possess. It's open to everyone. It's not just the subcommittee of the 3 of us. If you have any input, you'll have their number, they'll have your number. If you want them to call you, they will do that. Time-wise, we're hoping to get all that information to them if we choose to appoint them, to hire them. And so that somewhere by middle of January, they can start their soliciting. They have a number of people already in their database that they feel would be good candidates for this job, but they also want to do a larger search. They would put that out in the middle of January, within 30 days, gather, interview, etc., then come back to us in February, late February, somewhere in there, for us to make a decision on people that they've vetted. And if we come up with somebody that we like, at that point we can appoint someone, or we can offer to hire someone if they choose to accept it. They often have to give 30-day notice. Now you're at the end of March, so you're starting April. That would leave 60 days of overlap for that person to work with Ken to learn what the Santa Clara County HCA is all about. And I don't normally, as the chair, do all that talking, but I think because I was on that subcommittee, the other 2 were not here, I needed to pass all that on. Question? Oh, anybody wishing from the public to speak to item number 3, except for you 2? All right.
Motion to approve the recommendation of going with CPS HR Consulting.
Okay.
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion, any questions? And I was kidding. If you have any questions, of course, of Ken or of Pamela and Ed.
I don't
Yes.
know, I'm not
Mr.
about the
Tucker.
consultant, but I'm wondering because in the beginning last year, Vera, you said that if we hired a direct employee, that there were a lot of other steps that had to be taken in regards to pension, 401K, CalPERS, whatever, whichever way you
Right.
are recommending. So during that time of this timeline that was just outlined, would you be?
Well, let me respond to that. One of the ways that I was envisioning this perhaps occurring is that, depending what type of benefits the board wants to offer this position, it may depend on the candidate. And one of the things that you could certainly offer in a recruitment is to say that, that PERS may be negotiable, whatever it happens to be, that, whatever you want to offer. At a bare minimum, you're going to have to offer Social Security, right? As a retirement, that they're going to have to pay into that, and we're going to have to set that up. What I've done is I will contract for someone to do a job specification, a lawfully compliant job specification for this position. I will contract for someone to do a contract, a standardized contract that you can, add provisions to or whatever. That'll be ready. The consultant should already have a contract for their services. We came up with a template that should have been distributed with the request for proposals. And so, and that had some timeline blanks or whatever, but a lot of that is done too. I will also ask someone to set up whatever other employment things we need for one employee. Once you get over a certain number of employees, you need to have a lot more in place, but we'll do whatever we need to lawfully do within that time. And so, if need be, I may need to come to the board in the future to ask for, additional monies to contract for those services. If it is, I know employment law well from the in-house standpoint or whatever, but setting up a new agency, I'm not going to dip my toes into that. I think I might miss something. That's not my expertise. So I have hired Liebert Cassidy Whitmore to help us with those setup services. And so I think we're in good shape to do what we need to do in January.
Okay, and again, Ken, just 1 second. And again, all these things that we're facing are things that are faced because we're a startup, because we're a brand-new organization, an agency, hiring an executive director, taking in money, spending money. We've been going through these growing pains for the last 6 months, and we're checking off one item after another that needs to be done in order to be up and running. And a year, 2 years from now, it'll just hopefully be business as usual, as a regular organization. Yes, Ken?
Well, I totally agree with those comments, and that this is all part of the startup. The motion gives me the authority to sign the agreement. My intent would be working with Vera to have that agreement signed rather quickly, so we can get them actually under contract on board. And then working again with Vera to identify what items, job description, et cetera, need to be resolved prior to the beginning of outreach. And that would include compensation, obviously. And then are there items that can be resolved, sort of after that? And then you will have an agenda item on January 16th regarding the executive officer recruitment process, and I don't know quite what it's all going to be, but we'll keep you in the loop. Second is there probably will be some actions at that point in time. The other comment to make is that you have appointed an executive officer recruitment committee of three board members plus Morgan Hill staff member Leslie Little, who is not available today. And what I think should be clear is that committee is going to continue to function as we move forward. I think it has certainly worked very well today, and there needs to be a core group of folks that the consultant can interact with, I can interact with, and that can interact with everybody else. And we will try to make sure that everybody has opportunity to talk with the consultant, certainly, but we don't want to get tied down to a lot of other details needing to be resolved at an implementation board meeting if it means we lose 6 weeks in the process.
Sure.
And Ken, I want to add on to, and it'd be directed to you, Vera, time is of the essence in this. The motion here, as Ken said, is authorization for the interim executive officer to sign an agreement. We're talking about CPS HR Consulting. We have a motion, bless you. We have a motion, we have a second. We've had our discussion. Then once that's done, charging you to get whatever agreements that you need put together so that can be part of what
Yeah.
CPS HR Consulting has.
That's why we tried to make the RFP as complete as possible when it went
Yeah.
out, and we reviewed that carefully, was so that we would be very nimble and ready to go. I only had one comment on what was said, in that I'm not going to make recommendations as to salary or anything. That's not my place. It's a policy consideration. But, for example, what the consultant could do is say that the current salary is this and it's negotiable. You know, we could
Yes.
say what it is currently and that it's negotiable. Work some language around that and see what happens, you
Yeah.
know, and try to say we're interested in providing certain benefits, those are negotiable as well, and they, you know, once they get on board, they may have to do some of that work.
Thank
That
you.
often happens.
And to
So
Commissioner
thank you.
Siebert's point that he raised earlier in the concern, I think what you just said, and Ken, I appreciate the rate that you're working at compared to what you said the market is, but I think what you just said, and we have our consulting firm here, is a very important way to go, to say this is what we are currently paying. You know, anything beyond that is negotiable, and that can all be in the dance that is done. But I by no means want to start things out at, you know, we think the market's $195 an hour, and da-da-da-da-da-da. I want to go with, this is what we're currently paying. And some people might be coming from more or less, whatever. That's all part of the negotiations that take place in that. And unless there's any opposition, yes.
I just wanted to make a quick comment.
Please.
When appropriate. Thank you. I just wanted to recognize CPS as a well-qualified firm. We've worked with them on other recruitments, and they've done exceptional work for us. And secondly, I just want to acknowledge their offer to outreach to us individually. I appreciate the work of the committee, the search committee that's working on this, but I think some of the other board members may have some comments and input, and to the extent we can talk well before January, so that way when this comes back in mid-January, you'll have the benefit of all those comments. So,
Thank you. And
so
I'll add-
good choice.
I'll
Thank
add
you.
on to what you said as well, because the other two members are not here, but CPS does have they have done business, are currently doing business with the City of San Jose, the County of Santa Clara, and the Water District. So I don't know if anybody else from your agencies wish to have any, acknowledge any relationship with them as far as full disclosure. Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further
just did.
discussion?
You just did disclose.
For you. We just did for San Jose. Thank you. There you go. And the water, that's right, San Jose and the Water District and the county. There we go. We got it, and we got Morgan Hill.
Disclosed it all.
Thank you.
We got it all. Good, good. Anyone else? Otherwise, I'll call for the question. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations. And Ken, number 4 is a report from you.
Right, this will be very short. You're going to have a very short meeting. That does not diminish the importance of this meeting.
No, it just
This meeting has
shows,
been absolutely critical to my continuing to say that I'm the interim through June, and somebody's going to be in place, and I can hand this all off, which I appreciate, and my wife will appreciate it even more. I've included in the report a meeting schedule. Your next meeting, as well as the governing board meeting, is January 6th. We will put onto that agenda looking at a meeting schedule for the next year.
did you say January 6th or 16th?
I'm sorry, 16th.
16th.
January 16th.
Thank you.
Thank you for catching that. We set regular meetings in the resolution back in May. That needs to be revisited. There are some issues in terms of a budget adoption and other issues, I think, that need to be taken up in looking at a meeting schedule for 2014. The participating special entities process continues to move ahead. We're getting indications from Gavilan College, Open Space Authority, looks like San Jose Water Company, PG&E at least, and maybe more. Public Advisory Committee outreach is attached to the report. It went out last week, I guess it was. And that application process runs through December the 16th. It's a Monday. For some reason, I didn't want to say Friday the 13th. And then I've noted an issue that will come back to you as a policy issue sometime in the first quarter, probably of 2014, which is the nitrogen deposition fees from outside the habitat plan area. We are getting some commitments from development that they will be paying fees voluntarily, and we will need to deal with the issues of a variety of issues dealing with what do you do with voluntary payments?
You
and
take
how
the
does-
money, and
Oh,
then,
you first say, you take the money, you cash a check.
and then you work out the details.
But after that, there are a variety of issues. We talked with the wildlife agencies briefly about it last week. They agree too that there are some really interesting issues that need to get sorted out, and we'll get back to you as a policy issue also. So, with that note, have happy holidays, and we'll see you in January, except you'll be hearing from us, certainly on the Executive Office of Recruitment.
Thank you for your report. And committee members, anything else? Anybody else wishes to share or ask? Nope, then we'll say this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
As long as they can get back.
Half an hour.